In the previous video, we looked at factoring as a technique to be used in solving a general quadratic equation. And you remember that this factoring technique depends on the zero product property of real numbers. Okay, so let's look at another example now. We have x squared plus x minus 2 is equal to 4. Now you might be tempted to go ahead and factor this left-hand side, and indeed it does factor. Let's see about that. X squared plus x minus 2 is equal to 4. This left side will factor into x plus 2 and x minus 1. But you should see that this actually does us no good at all. And the reason is that on the right-hand side we do not have a 0, we have a 4. So without a 0 on the right-hand side, this technique fails. We cannot say anything about these factors relating to the number 4. So this is not how we want to start working this problem. The first step in solving this equation is to get a 0 on the right-hand side. And we can do that by subtracting 4. So if we subtract 4 from each side, then we get x squared plus x minus 6 is equal to 0. Now we have a 0 on the right-hand side, and so we can go ahead and factor. Okay, two sets of parentheses, x and x, and then factors of negative 6 that add up to 1. We need x plus 3 and x minus 2, don't we? Okay, now we have the product of two factors equal to 0, so one of them must be 0. So we'll write down each possibility. X plus 3 equals 0, or x minus 2 is equal to 0. Okay, so this one gives us x equals negative 3, and this one gives us x is equal to 2. Two solutions. Now, we've seen how to solve a quadratic equation using factoring, and it is a good technique, but unfortunately it doesn't always work because not all quadratic expressions will factor. For equations where the quadratic expression will not factor, we have a different technique. And this technique involves using the quadratic formula. I'm not going to take you through the derivation of the quadratic formula. I'm just going to write it down for you. Here it is. And then explain how to use it. You remember in the general quadratic equation we have ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. All we need to do is take those values of a, b, and c and plug them into this formula, and then we get the solution for x. Okay, so for example, we have this quadratic equation, x squared plus 4x minus 7 is equal to 0. This quadratic equation cannot be solved by factoring because this expression here does not factor. So to solve using the quadratic formula, we first identify a, b, and c. A is the coefficient of x squared, in this case 1. B is the coefficient of x, in this case 4. And c is the number which stands by itself, in this case, -7. Okay, so now we just substitute into the formula, and we get x is equal to negative. Now this negative sign comes from the formula, and then b is 4, and 2 times 1, and then plus or minus. b is 4, so that's 4 squared minus 4, that's this 4 from the formula, and then 1 times -7. And then that has to be divided by 2a, which is 2 again. You have to pay attention and not drop negative signs when using this formula. If you drop one negative sign, the answer is just going to be wrong. Okay, so let's simplify this result now. We have 4 divided by 2, so that's 2 with a negative sign. So -2, and then plus or minus, and then under the radical we have 16, 4 squared is 16, and then we have -4 times -7 is 28. And we have to divide that by 2. 16 plus 28 is 44. So that gives us -2 plus or minus root 44 divided by 2. And that will actually simplify to root 11. Okay, so our two solutions are x is equal to -2 plus root 11. X equals -2 minus root 11. And if you're interested, you can get approximate values for root 11 and substitute them in. And the approximate answers are given here in the notes.